Fellow entrepreneurs, welcome to Sink or Swim. My name is Bill Badran, and today we're going to dive in part 2 of the two-part series with Nadine Chalari, the business lawyer, where last week we spoke about the importance of incorporating. Now this week we're going to be getting into the shareholder agreement and the importance of whether you should do it or not. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. What do you think of the shareholder agreement?
Shareholder agreements are extremely important. I would never ever shy away from doing it. I think a lot of people get a bit weary about doing it because it's really expensive. A really good, well-drafted shareholder agreement can easily range from $2,000 to $10,000. So it's not a cheap endeavor, and a proper and well-drafted shareholder agreement is easily 70 to 100 pages. So it's not an easy document to draft, but it's probably one of the most important ones.
You said 70 to 100 pages?
Yes.
Wow,
it's very long.
That's bigger than a marriage contract.
It's very long, but it is a marriage contract.
It is technically a marriage contract.
You know, it's the only thing that you have as a protection. And I think that people oftentimes make the mistake that when they open a business, they're in like their honeymoon phase and everything is going so well. We're really good friends, and I hear it all the time at the office. And within a month or 2 months, something will go sour and they're in a disagreement and they don't have a shareholders agreement.
Okay.
And there you're just really pulling teeth at that point because you don't have anything to work off of.
Okay.
So my recommendation to clients is always that if you're opening a business, never ever cut on your legal fees. It's the one part in your business that really matters, that it's properly structured, the incorporation is properly structured, but also at the same time that you have the right documentation as well.
100%.
And essentially speaking, the problem is that if ever a problem does arise, you want to make sure that you're always looking long term. Short term, yeah, there's a lot of fees. I totally agree with that. You know, an incorporation is expensive, shareholder agreements are really expensive, but if you were ever to get in a lawsuit with your partner and you were to sue each other because you had some sort of dispute, you're looking at the difference between paying $2,000 at first or paying $45,000, $50,000 later.
100%.
So you pick which one you want. Ultimately, it's your decision. I can't really force anyone to do anything, but if it was me, and what I always advise my clients is do the right things first, because you will pay for them later on in your business at some way or some point.
I couldn't agree more. But you know, sometimes when you're first starting a business, you're running low on costs. You don't have all the money in the world to go thinking about all these things. Now, obviously, when you're first starting a business, it's not very complex. Unless you're starting something like a major software that's gonna have so many technicalities. Let's put those guys on the side. But let's say we're starting at a simple business, a financial firm, an accounting firm together, or even any type of real estate agreement that we're doing together. What are the basic highlights? What should I look for as a business entrepreneur, someone that's starting out right now? What should I look for that are the most important things that I should not avoid in the shareholder agreement?
In the shareholders agreement or in the corporation in general?
In the shareholder agreement.
Okay. In the shareholders agreement, there's a couple points that are extremely pivotal, that are really, really important. I would say mainly the sections having to do with how disputes are resolved and what should happen if one of you dies. That's probably the most important one. So in terms of what should happen if there's a dispute, for example, how can you voluntarily withdraw from a business? How can you shotgun another person, which is a really big question as well. So for example, if you're in a type of dispute where you absolutely can't agree on anything, then maybe one or the other wants to shotgun the other person inside the partnership. Also, we have questions regarding...
To shotgun means to be able to remove that person from the business? Is that what it means?
So shotgun essentially is a type of procedure that you only use if you're in a type of disagreement where you absolutely cannot agree. Okay. So I always tell my clients we don't shotgun people for fun, because sometimes they tell me, oh, I'll shotgun this person. Well, you don't shotgun them unless you really have to, because it's a harsh thing to do and it's a little bit aggressive. So the way that it works is that, let's say you and I are in a dispute and we absolutely can't agree on anything. I can go see you and say, Bill, I'm offering to buy your shares for $1 million, but at the same time, you have the option of buying my shares for $1 million. So you're basically offering to buy or to sell at the exact same price.
Okay.
And that person that you're shotgunning has the option of saying yes or no, I will buy or I will sell.
And if they don't want?
They don't have a choice, it's a shotgun. So you have basically normally like a 30-day delay for you to decide if you're gonna buy or sell.
So I know we're going a bit too much in detail, but what if you shotgun me and I tell you I want to buy you for $1 million?
Then you can, absolutely. So it's a two-way street, right? So either I offer to buy your shares or they can offer to buy my shares, but it's always at the exact same price. Okay. That's what makes it fair. So if you're shotgunning someone, it's both ways.
Okay.
So that's one procedure that's really important. Another thing is you want to think of businesses that, for example, have a lot of minority shareholders and maybe a few majority shareholders. In those cases, you have certain situations that we call piggyback rights. Piggyback rights are essentially like what they're called. You're piggybacking on a sale. So it's a drag along and a tag along. The way that it works is, let's say the majority shareholders want to sell their shares. They get an offer from a third-party investor and that person wants to come in. The minority shareholders can say, I don't want to now be in a shareholding where there is a majority shareholder that I just don't know. So I'm piggybacking on your sale and I'm tagging along to it, so you also have to sell my shares at the same time. And the opposite is also true. So for example, let's say the majority shareholders want to sell, but now the minority shareholders are saying, no, we want to stay in the business, we don't want to sell our shares. Well, it's the same thing. The majority shareholders can drag them into that sale and force them to do it as well.
That's crazy.
So these are all things that are discussed within the shareholders agreement. And the most important one is the death clause. The death clause is probably like the only, I think one of the main reasons why you should have a shareholders agreement.
So if one of the shareholders passes away, you would basically have the shotgun option to buy all of his shares before it goes into his estate, right?
So it wouldn't be a shotgun in this case, but it is basically that. Essentially, the way that it works is, let's say one of them dies, we have what is called a deemed sale.
A deemed sale, yes.
So it's deemed the day before they died. So let's say I'm the one who passes away and you and I we're in a corporation together. Then you would have you would basically be able to buy my shares the day before I died. It's a deemed sale. And the other option to that is, let's say I have a will and I'm married and my shares go to my husband. Then it's what we call a put option. So put option is when you give the option to someone to decide what they want to do.
Gotcha.
So here in this case, the husband would have the put option of deciding that either I can force Bill to buy these shares from me, or I can keep them for myself. So these are all different things that are discussed in the agreement. Obviously what I'm telling you is standard and we can customize it for every single client. People come in here and they tell us all weird and interesting things that they want in their agreement, and that's what we'll draft for them. But essentially speaking, those are the main standard points that you'll see.
That's crazy, because you can actually end up, I can actually end up with your husband if we're partners. I can end up with your husband in the business, and let's say he does not have the same expertise that you do.
Exactly.
Unless I write it in the partnership agreement that I want to be able to buy all of your shares on the day you pass away, or vice versa, I could face that consequence.
Well, that's really the big fear, and that's why I so strongly advise that people have shareholder agreements. Because sometimes, for example, we have clients that come in and they don't have a shareholders agreement and they've been in business for 30 years. So now we're talking about men that are in between 50 and 60. And so it's not that far away for them to pass away. And the problem there is that, yes, if they do pass away, their wives will come into the business. So you kind of want to avoid that. Because like you said, they don't necessarily have that expertise, so having them in the business is not ideal.
But now, for example, if let's say the company doesn't have enough liquidities to buy, if I don't have enough liquidities in the company to buy you out, how would I usually finance that transaction?
So each of the shareholders has to get life insurance.
Life insurance.
So the way that it works is that the life insurance is subscribed to personally by those shareholders, and it's the beneficiary of that life insurance is the corporation.
It's amazing.
So that's the way that it works. So if one of them dies, they will use that life insurance to buy back those shares from the estate. And depending on the way that the agreement is drafted, they'll have to pay up a certain amount right away, and then there'll be certain amounts that are given over time. And along with that, you may have also different situations where, for example, there's not enough money or there's too much money. And those will also be covered in the agreement. What happens if there's excess money with the life insurance, or what happens if there's simply not enough? How will that be paid?
That's amazing. So, for a fraction of the cost, you can actually buy a life insurance that finances the whole purchase of a stock, transfer, basically. Well, that's amazing. And these are all things I think that could be avoided if you do them right the same at the beginning of the business. You draft those, they might cost a bit in the beginning, but over the long run, it could save you the headache, it saves you the time, and it saves you the money, because settling a dispute, by buying each other out, or like going to the judge or in the court and saying, I told you this, but you told me that. When you have it on paper, I guess it makes things much simpler, and you cover all your angles, whether death, disability, buybacks, disputes, everything. So I think it would be smart, and I would advise that again with you to anyone who's starting the business to have that on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you, and it's probably one of the most important things that you could do.
Amazing. So, Ms. Shalari, I thank you very much for being on the show today. We brought up a lot of topics that are very, very important. I find that any entrepreneur that is starting out has to consult the lawyer that's starting the business with him, at least in the first year. And I think you agree with me that it's not essential to do it on the first day. I know maybe the funds might be low. So, you know, at least if someone could put it in his agenda to put it in the first year to meet his lawyer. And I thank you honestly for sharing your knowledge. It's priceless, I find. And I hope it reaches the crowd of entrepreneurs that want to start this.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure. And I completely agree with you. If anyone is starting their business, it's important for them to go see a lawyer from the get-go, and especially for their incorporation or their shareholders agreement.
Exactly. Perfect. So there you have it, folks. You now finished part 2 of the 2-part series where we spoke about the importance of incorporating and the importance of the shareholder agreement. So I want to take the time to thank Ms. Nadine Shalari for giving us as much information as possible. If you have any questions, again, don't forget to leave it down in the comment section below. And please like our videos and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, guys, hit the goddamn bell.